Without much real public debate or even discussion, the elite left has reached a conclusion on the question, and it's that America needs more immigration, much more, immigration without limit. And we shouldn't worry about whether the people coming here have skills that we need, whether they're educated, whether they can speak English even, or even whether they're violent criminals. In fact, we shouldn't even try to accurately count how many are coming here or how many live within our borders. Do you disagree with that? Well, then, in the words of one MSNBC commentator, you're pure evil. Watch.
Donald Trump, without a doubt, is pure evil. No other country in the Americas has walls. No other country in the world separates children from their parents.
Pure evil. The thing about pure evil is you can't reason with it. You can't negotiate with pure evil or reach some kind of compromise with pure evil. Pure evil can only be destroyed by force. Given that, it's not surprising that the left is now mobilizing to harass, fire, and if necessary, physically attack anyone who disagrees with them on immigration, because the other side is, again, pure evil. For example, after chasing DHS Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen out of a restaurant earlier this week in downtown Washington, activists now showed up at her home. But zoom out for a moment. Why exactly does America need more immigration? Everybody says it does, but do we really? Does more immigration help ordinary Americans? Does it improve the country? Or does it just enrich an elite class, the policymaking class, at the expense of everyone else? Democratic politicians are now pushing rhetoric that is getting more extreme by the day. New York gubernatorial candidate Cynthia Nixon recently declared, for example, that ICE is a terrorist organization. Watch this.
ICE has strayed so far from its mission. It's supposed to be here to keep Americans safe, but what it's turned into is frankly a terrorist organization of its own.
Jumaane Williams is a New York City councilman. He's running for lieutenant governor of New York State and could share a ticket potentially with Cynthia Nixon. He joins us tonight for our special. Mr. Williams, thanks a lot for coming on. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
So let's start with being honest about one thing that I think Michael Anton is right about. We're, most of the time when we talk about immigration, having a religious debate about who's a good person, who's a bad person. So if we could, for the next 4 minutes, let's keep this to policy.
Sure.
Tell me how bringing more immigrants into your neighborhood, I think it's East Flatbush in New York, helps the people who already live there. Immigrants and citizens, the people who are already there, how are they helped by it?
Well, I'm very proud to be the son of immigrants, and I'm very proud that the majority of my constituents are either immigrants or their parents are immigrants. I think that's the wrong question. The question many of us are asking is why do we have to use overwhelming force, resources, and draconian measures to rip up families for an issue that at best is akin to graffiti or a parking ticket? That's the question that we're asking.
Well, but I'm not sure that it is, and that's why and I think you're asking a fair question, but let's get to the deeper question, which is, why is our current immigration system good for the people who already live here? So if we decide, for example, that mass immigration and mass illegal immigration hurts Americans, then it's worth being pretty tough, I would say, on the border. So why don't you explain to me why the people of East Flatbush who are dealing with overcrowded schools, who are dealing with public transportation that's falling apart, that are dealing with rising rents that are making them move, how do they benefit from more immigrants living there?
Well, again, I actually still believe that immigrants to this country have and still do benefit this country. The reason I'm trying to flip back is because even if I conceded to your argument, let's pretend that somehow it's harmful, how harmful is it? Is it worth
well, I'm not actually making an argument.
Sure.
I'm asking you a question, which is, in the most simple and most basic, the foundational question. How does this help Americans, our people, and you don't have an answer to it?
No, I think
and I find that really interesting,
no, but I think that's that is not the foundational question. So we disagree on what the foundational question is. And so if I'm conceding,
really?
if for the sake of your argument, there is some harm, it is akin to writing graffiti on the wall or akin to getting a parking ticket. And so the question
But you're not proving that, you're just stating it.
No,
so, for example, housing prices are a huge problem, and you're a liberal, I'm a conservative,
Sure.
but we can agree that housing prices in New York are hurting people. Your people are being hurt by housing prices going up.
The question is...
Why does an influx of immigrants make prices go down? No, it makes them go up.
The question is,
do you know that?
In my state, 1% of the population makes $45 percent more than the bottom 99%. That's not immigrants. We have more millionaires and billionaires that came out of the recession than before. That's not immigrants. Black people came into the recession with the least amount of wealth, and they lost the most. Those aren't immigrants. This year,
true.
We're gonna.
No, well, you're absolutely right, and I actually think it's a huge problem. But let me ask you this: who supports mass immigration more, poor Black Americans or rich people on the Upper East Side of New York? I know the answer. Let me blow your mind and tell you the rich people support it more because they get cheap housekeepers out of it. And the people in your district who were born in this country see it as a threat to them because it is a threat to them.
No, but
and you're not representing them if you don't recognize
generally speaking,
that.
the people who support the ripping up of the families and the child detention centers are doing it because they're saying their life is made worse. But who's making their life worse is not immigrants. And so the 33,000 Americans who are going to be shot and killed this year are not immigrants. They are Americans. And so what my question is, why are we spending more on ICE than any other federal enforcement agency combined to do this?
Okay, but we're arguing apples and oranges.
Sure.
I'm just kidding. We're almost out of time, but really quick, can you name a specific way that flooding East Flatbush with immigrants, poor immigrants, will make the lives of your people, the people who live in your neighborhood, better, the Americans?
Listen,
how would it improve their lives?
I'm running for lieutenant governor. The current lieutenant governor has said that she would turn people over to ICE. And so she kind of leans toward you when it comes to immigration. But my fundamental point here is that we are spending overwhelming force, draconian money on something that is akin to graffiti.
Right, no, I get it.
But it's important.
You don't like it, but you can't tell me how bringing these people in helps Americans because we both know it doesn't.
I always congratulate you on your conflation of issues. It's great. Right. You shouldn't stop. But it's just not.
I'm not conflating anything.
Issue at hand.
I'm asking the basic question.
Me
We're
too.
out of time, unfortunately.
Thanks for having me.
Councilman Williams, thank you. Brandon Judd is the president of the National Border Patrol Council, and he joins us tonight. Mr. Judd, thank you for coming on. So first, I've got to ask you how, at the end of this week, when you and people like you have been compared to Nazis on CNN and MSNBC all week, what's your reaction to that? How does that make you feel? How does it make the guys you work with feel? What's morale like after a week like this?
Well, first off, I'm absolutely disgusted that somebody would compare ICE agents, Border Patrol agents, CBP officers to Nazis who actually murdered people. What we're doing is we're enforcing the law in a very humane way. We're doing it the way Congress asked us to do it, and we're doing it in an effort to protect this country and to protect those citizens in the United States. Look, I've met with the Angel Moms. I'm grateful that President Trump met with the Angel Moms today, and to hear their stories and to find out how horrible that they feel because they're really ripped apart is pathetic. To think that people in our own country would disparage their law enforcement officers and agents that are only trying to help them.
So you're seeing Democrats running for office in this fall's midterm elections. We interviewed one of them last night, running on abolishing ICE because they say the agency is immoral. How do you respond to that?
Notice how they don't use facts. You know, your last guest, he said that ICE is the highest funded law enforcement organization in the federal government. That's absolutely false. ICE is actually a very small organization. The United States Border Patrol is much larger than ICE. CBP is much larger than ICE. But what they do is they don't use facts. They use rhetoric, and they're trying to scare people. And the facts, when we let all of the dust settle, when we actually find out what the facts are, people come back and say, wow, I was duped. After this week is over, after all of this this outcry of what's going on, once this week is over and everything, the waters are less muddy and people take a look back and see what was really happening, they're going to say, I was duped, and they're going to come right back to the Republicans, and thank goodness they're going to.
Very quickly, since the left is now calling for the abolition of ICE, what do you think would happen if ICE were eliminated? If ICE were eliminated, we would never be able to go after the criminal aliens that are currently here in the United States. We're talking about rapists. We're talking about murderers. We're talking about people that commit DUI and then kill people, manslaughter, homicide, negligent homicide. We're talking about all kinds of different crimes. And without ICE, we would not be able to go after these individuals, and we would have a less safe country. We just can't have it. It's terrifying. Brandon Judd, thank you.